Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. I'm Karen Williams, the Book Mentor, and today I'm really looking forward to chatting with Alisoun Mackenzie. Now, Alisoun and I connected through one of my clients, and I went to her, Helen, one of my clients' book launch last year in Edinburgh. And when Alisoun was talking to me at the time about her new book, and I really felt that we could create some great collaborations together, and I really wanted to interview her. Now, she recently launched her book, Give to Profit, and she'll be talking a little bit more about that today, and also how she can support you as well. So welcome, Alisoun, and thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks so much, Karen. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you for giving me this opportunity for a chat. I love our conversations.
And I think we could talk for hours today.
Yeah.
So let me give you a little bit, if you don't know Alisoun, I'll give you a bit of an introduction to her. She is often described as one of the most authentic, inspiring and heart-centered souls you can meet. And she's on a mission to guide heart-centered business owners and entrepreneurs to turn their passions into profits and make a difference in the world. Her entrepreneurial spark was lit when she launched a travel club in 1991, and it became a new way of life for her in 2003 when she left the investment industry to start her own business. Since then, her keynote presentations, training events, mentoring and best-selling books, which are Heartitude, the 9 Principles of Heart-Centered Success, and Give to Profit, How to Grow Your Business by Supporting Charities and Social Causes, have favourably changed the good fortune of thousands of people worldwide. Alisoun's regular humanitarian trips to Rwanda, helping young genocide survivors, have profoundly changed her life and influenced the way she puts social impact at the core of her business. She's full of gratitude every day for the joyful and meaningful life she leads. Opposite end of the country to me, living near a beach just outside Edinburgh in Scotland. So, wow, I'm really looking forward to talking to you today. So should we jump in and talk a little bit more about what's inspired you to do this?
Yes, absolutely. Well, what people can see there is a picture here of some young people in Rwanda. And I've got to a point, I started off in business in 2003, and it was with that idea that I wanted to help make a difference in the world, leave the corporate world behind. And if I'm honest, my first goal was, how do I support myself financially when I'm self-employed doing something that I enjoy doing? Which at that time was coaching and therapies, and I was doing lots of well-being training in different workplaces and things and working with clients. And then around 2005 I had a switch of focus where I started to work more with business owners and entrepreneurs and built up a full-time training consultancy business. But I just got to the point where it was a successful business. It was making lots of money, but I'd become a slave to the job. It was almost like it didn't light me up anymore, and I just felt there was something missing. So I can remember walking away from, I'd been out in India actually doing a 3-week stint for an organisation doing some training consultancy, and I came back and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I can remember going in to that workplace and saying, I don't think you need me anymore. I've trained everybody up in the UK and India. Here's your train the trainer, package, if you like. How about I leave today? And it was amazing because I can remember, yeah, it was literally, I handed everything over and they were a little bit stunned, like, whoa, okay. And to me, they were one of my clients. They were a big one of my clients, but I did have other business. But I just knew I had to walk away because I didn't like what I saw them do in the way that they treated their people in India, and I thought, I can't work for any client where I don't resonate with values anymore. And I'm burnt out from, I was training pretty much Monday to Friday, spending my weekends preparing and traveling and on the road again, and that wasn't the reason I set up in business. I wanted to have more freedom and more time to do the things that I loved. So I can remember meeting up with my sister that afternoon and sitting outside on a sunny day like it is today in Edinburgh, drinking a bottle of fizz, and we were having a talk about life. And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I'm looking for something that enables me to work with young people like these young people you see in the image here. And I want to travel because I love traveling, and I want to make use of my skills because for me, whenever I see pictures of wars or natural disasters or the acts of terrorism that we see everywhere, my heart just bleeds open, and I want to go and rush and help, but I felt useless because I'm not a doctor, a nurse, or a member of fire brigade or anything, and I knew I wanted to use my skills. So the way I do things is I just set my intention that that's what I was looking for, an opportunity to do something meaningful where I could travel, work with young people and use my skills. And the very next day an email came into my inbox about this project in Rwanda, which is working with young genocide survivors. Many of them are orphans. Who, some of them have lived on the streets, are into prostitution, had a really difficult life, because what happened in Rwanda was the genocide wiped out a lot of the adults. You have a lot of children who had to bring themselves up, and children who at 5 were bringing up their 2 siblings who were younger, and it was just horrific, you know. And I thought, right, I want to go and see what this is about. So I can remember sending an email just saying, love what you're doing, would like to hear more. And the person who runs that charity, who's a good friend of mine now, Laurie Layden, she came back and said straight away, fancy a Skype call. We did. On the following Monday we Skyped, and 8 weeks later here I am at the top of an orphanage in Rwanda. So that's kind of where it all started for me.
So supporting causes, obviously you found something that was really important to you. Talk us through this. Supporting causes is good for everyone. Talk about how it's good for individuals and also their business as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when I was I guess when I went out to Rwanda, I originally just thought I was going out to do some kind of humanitarian work. I was looking for something that would add meaning to my life and suss out the organisation at the same time that I might support, for a number of months or years. I actually at that point never thought it was even connected to my business. So when I went into this, it was without that intention at all. And so everything I guess I'm sharing with you today and in my book, it's all about what I have discovered on the back of the work I've done. So when I came back from Rwanda, I was still running a training consultancy business, and I now, my heart had just broken open with love for these young people, and I knew I couldn't leave them. I wanted to go back. I wanted to continue to support the project. But how did I do both when I'm trying, you and I both know, and I'm sure a lot of these people listening to this will know, what a lot of time it takes to build and maintain a successful business. So I was like, well, how do I do that? And I decided to make what are called miracle bead bracelets, which are just bracelets with all the different rainbow colours or chakra colours. And I started taking them along to networking events. And what started to happen was that when I went along to the networking events, and I do the usual elevator pitch about me being a business mentor and a therapist, and I would then say, and I have these bracelets where I'm raising funds for the work I do with genocide survivors in Rwanda, I'd pick up a few clients, but actually people were far more interested in the bracelets. So I could easily raise several £100s at a networking event by selling the bracelets.
Wow.
And people it was incredible. And then people started to say, well, actually, could you come and tell us a story about what you were doing in Rwanda? So I'd get asked to do speaking events where, again, I'd take my bracelets along and raise money for a charity, which was great. But quite often in those speaking events, it would be a mixture of me telling my story plus doing a demo of tapping or NLP, which were two of the techniques, that I use. And from that, I was getting bookings for one-to-one clients. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then one of my friends said to me, well, why don't you come to my house and do a party where you can teach us tapping and have your bracelets, and I'll invite my friends round and for some wine and nibbles. And I started doing parties like that, which again, I was selling bracelets, but I was getting more business on the back of it too, and then more speaking opportunities. So what I began to notice was that when I focused on something I loved, when I focused on my giving, and when I was strategic about it, so the strategic piece here was that I was targeting my fundraising at groups of people who were my ideal audience, and that's something I'll come on to later. But when I was being strategic about the things I said yes to, I was building my business. And for me, it just seemed natural, because if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have had time to do the fundraising plus run the business.
So was it accidental to a certain extent?
Completely accidental. Yeah. It was a completely accidental thing. And then people started to say to me, well, what is it you're doing and how is it you're doing it? Because some of the benefits, if you like, in terms of how it's good for us, without a doubt, I grew as a person. When you get involved in something that resonates with your value, and then you get involved with the people, it completely captured my heart, and actually expanded my heart in so many ways because of the cause I chose to support. But it helped me realised that what I offered was valuable in different markets to different people as well. So I was having an impact and touching the lives of more people. I had discovered it was a great way to grow my business. But actually, I think the third point I've got on this slide here is that, you know, we live in a time where there isn't the same amount of money available to charities and social causes as there was before, you know, the big funders.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have found is a lot of charities and social causes and social enterprises, they target the big corporates, and they have totally not realised there is a massive group of small to medium-sized businesses who could also support them. And those businesses also don't actually think about supporting causes necessarily as part of their business strategy. So if you think about it, when we're in business, we quite often think about, right, I'm running a business, and even if, like you and I, we like doing, you know, we like raising money for causes, we think of that as something we do in our personal life. We keep them separate.
Yeah. I certainly did when I was doing that. I certainly saw them as two different things, and there was a bit of an overlap, but it didn't really. No, it wasn't like you're doing it.
Yeah, because we were never taught. And that, I mean, the way I set up a business was I set up my business and it was completely separate from I went off and did this humanitarian trip. I never thought I never consciously thought I could bring them together. It just kind of evolved. But then what I began to realise was that that's why people were asking me, well, what is it you're doing? How are you doing it all? And I'm like, well, I do them together. Why wouldn't you do them together? And then I started to realise nobody else was. And I was like, okay, because what I found was that people who want to make a difference in the world tend to go down the route of, well, I need to set up a social enterprise or an NGO or a foundation or a charity, but there's lots of red tape. Whereas what I teach and give to profit is have a commercial business that strategically links to charitable giving, which actually is a much better business model for a lot of people, and particularly if what you're doing doesn't fit with a social enterprise model. But it's a way in which you have far more flexibility to choose different causes, you know, year by year, or to get involved by a number of different causes. Whereas, you know, if you go straight into that other model of the charitable angle, you are driven by the mission of that organisation or that charity or that cause. So it's something which, you know, the causes really need our support. And I have certainly found that doing this, people just love that you can support them. A couple of other things that I guess I do want to just mention in terms of why it is good for causes. And here's the thing, I'm going to ask a question of you, Karen. When you think about, if you're choosing somebody to buy from, and say for instance you've got 2 or 3 people that you could buy from, and you know that one of them is doing something that really resonates, you know, is doing something where you have the same values, and maybe they're involved in a cause that is close to your heart, and everything else about the other 2 or 3 people that you're looking at is the same, but one person is doing something good. Who are you most likely to do business with?
I've got a perfect example. The lady who manages my Facebook advertising, she supports a cause, and that's one of the reasons, as well as the fact I know her personally, one of the reasons I chose to work with her is because of that cause and because of the affiliation she's got, and I suppose the good-heartedness, that's not really a word, is it, that she's got towards that cause, and how she really wants to help other people.
Yes, and this is what happens. You start to, instead of attracting people where you maybe need to push or convince them or you know, in the old language, sell, you start to connect with people completely at a heart level. And so you connect with the person. And it makes them seem more attractive, and therefore we just resonate. We're more likely to buy from them. And this is what research is showing. If you look, there's loads of research now coming out around the millennial generation. So typically people who are in their early 30s, you know, mid 20s to early 30s, and the generation younger than that, this cohort proactively buy from companies and businesses who can demonstrate they care. And supporting charities and social causes is a great way to do that. They also choose to work for businesses who demonstrate they care. So again, in terms of for larger businesses, you know, if it's about attracting, engaging and retaining staff, it makes a mass, you know, this can be really good for that too. And then the other examples there, you know, that you can see are, you know, without a doubt, you expand your network. But actually, one of the things that's happened, you know, we've had a Hollywood film made about our work in Rwanda, which, you know, through the fundraising we did for the, you know, making that film in America, opened doors to, you know, to make us visible and get large amounts of money from people who, you know, I just had on a pedestal before. I would never have thought I would ever meet them, we are connected to them. But the doors opened purely because of this work. And I know so many people where that's the case, because when you connect at a heart level and when you connect around something that's important to you and that other person, it doesn't matter who they are, where they live, how much money they have, what they're doing in business, those walls are just not there.
Well, it's just a difference, isn't it? And you talk in point 7 about stories, and people don't necessarily, as you said with your elevator pitch, people don't necessarily, you know, they've heard it all before, haven't they? You're, you know, a business mentor, you do this, do this, do this. And when you talk from the heart and you actually share some of the stories you've gone through and the reason why you do what you do, it just touches people, as you said, on a different level.
Completely, completely. And you stand out. You know, one of the things we talk about in marketing is about being memorable and standing out and being different. This is what makes you different.
So tell us,
yeah, without a doubt.
Tell us, is there anything else that you want to touch on here that you think is important for our listeners to know about?
Yeah, I guess one of the things is, you know, that one of the challenges and misconceptions around, I suppose, charitable giving is we have to have the time. You know, we touched on that before we pressed record, you know, and quite often when you do this, if you've got a cause you're actually already really passionate about, and you want to support that cause, bringing that into your business can actually save you time and generate more money. If I give an example, and this is somebody who you know, Kim MacLeod, who runs a self-publishing business, which is another completely accidental business, which came on the back of her and her husband tragically losing their son to meningitis. And her husband had always wanted to write and publish books, but never had. So before it was easy to do all of this, he was writing and publishing books. But they wanted a couple of years ago to raise money for meningitis now, because their son died of meningitis, and they didn't know how to do it because they were building their business that was taking off, but it was a really important thing that they wanted to do to celebrate his life in the year he would have been 21. And he died when he was 14. And so what they did was they came up with a brilliant idea, which was to have the Callum MacLeod Memorial Prize, where they had people submit the first chapters of their book, and whoever won the competition was going to win, you know, the whole process, everything around getting their book published, the cost of turning a Word document into a book, the editing, the cover, everything. And they raised several thousand through people making donations to submit their chapters. But on the back of that, they had a pipeline of people who were ready to publish books. Yeah, they had a massive pipeline, which they wouldn't have had. They got press coverage, they got visibility, they got people handing them thousands of pounds up front saying, I'm not ready to publish my book now, but I'm coming to you to make it happen. And Kim swears it's because of the story and the charitable aspect. She said it sped up the credibility and the trustability factor.
Yeah. It's the reason why that they do what they do. It makes a huge difference.
Completely. And again, so it's about having that story, if you like, around it that makes a massive difference.
And the passion around it as well.
It's the passion, and it's not saying we all have to have that tragic story, or even a big story, because you can support causes from, you know, a simple, at one end of the spectrum, it's, well, at the moment I don't have the time to do anything more than donate some money to a cause. That's fine. The other end of the spectrum is we bring it in and put it at the heart and core of every part of our business. And you can choose how much time and money to focus on this.
Well, do you want to talk us through the model that you've created?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you come up with it, Alisoun?
Well, it's just a visual representation of realising that most people give their personal giving. If you think about how most people do this, their business and their giving, those circles would be separate.
Of course.
And so all I was doing was, well, actually, I bring them together.
Simple, isn't it?
It's so simple. The circles are separate for most people, and I just go, well, why don't we just make them together? And so I do see this as a new business model for people who run commercial businesses that where they also want to make a difference in the world. Yeah. And to realise that they don't need to keep their giving separate. Now, don't get me wrong, there were likely to be things that you'll do personally as well. I still donate if there's a disaster. You know, it happens around the world, I go off and donate, and there's other things I do. But I am very focused on there will always be a charitable component to my business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what this is about. So for things like, you know, if we're fundraising, one of the things we're looking at then is looking at, so how do I create a fundraising event that's going to appeal to my ideal customers instead of one for all my mates? Does that make sense? So it's just making those conscious decisions that it's in the business. And actually, if you want to leverage your time and your resources and have more impact, then it's actually about really looking at how you can give more to the people that are already part of your community and align it to your business goals, existing business goals and activities.
It does remind me actually when I did the Inca Trail for charity for Women Inspiring Women, the Genesis Research Trust back in 2013, and I had 18 months of fundraising, and it did actually enabled me. I focused so much on the fundraising, the business did actually suffer at the time. However, we did do things within the business. You know, I did a charity event. Well, I did an event where we did a firewalk actually, which was a business event, and then I had 7 speakers, and a lot of them gave up their time for charity. So we had a charity auction, and that raised over £1,000 on that day. And it's just reminded me, I totally forgot, is I am a trained firewalk instructor, and I did a board break event for charity one day as well. I'd forgotten all about that until now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can bring the two together. I just wasn't consciously doing it in this way.
Totally, totally. And it's realising what we do and realising the things that we do that have a positive impact on our business.
But there's obviously things, I know we're going to talk through your 7-step model in a moment, but you know, there's obviously things we need to think about with regards to legislation and things like that. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that later? So
why don't we talk about that later? Yeah, let's do that later. That would be good. Yeah, let's do that later.
So do you want to talk us through the model and how people can actually work out what they, you know, what charities they want to support, etc. What to do? That's the one.
Yeah, no, people quite often go, well, okay, I love this, but where do I start?
Yeah.
And that's why I've come up with these steps. And the first one, without a doubt, is to really connect to your why. Why would you want to do this? Okay, so if I give an example, for me, I knew I wanted to work with young people because I haven't had children, and I would love to have had, and I didn't have young people in my life. I wanted to travel more, and I wanted to make use of my skills. Those were the personal needs, if you like, that I had that weren't getting met through any part of my life. So those were my why, and I wanted to do something more meaningful with my life. So that led me to, because that was what I was really looking for, that's what led me to go off and do a humanitarian trip. But that isn't the reasons that would fuel everybody. So it's really important to be thinking about, well, why do you want to do this? Is it because you feel disconnected to your business in some way? Are you wanting a break from it? Or is it actually because you just want to add meaning to it? Is it because there's a cause that's really close to your heart and you would like to raise money for them? Or is it because there's a cause close to your heart and you would like to donate your time? Or I was doing a call like this yesterday to a community live, and one of the guys on the call is a web designer, and he was like, well, how do I go about offering to do a free website for a cause? Because I'd like to do that. I'd like to use my current skills but just give to somebody. How do I go about doing that? So we all have different reasons and different ideas, and it's really important to connect to those first because they guide everything else you do. From there, you're then looking at defining your goals. So in the same way that we might set ourselves personal goals or business goals, what you're doing is you're saying, right, what's your charitable goal? Is your goal to raise so much money for a cause? Is your goal to go off and do a trip? Is your goal to go off and volunteer somewhere? Is your goal to donate a day a month to a cause? You know, so you pick the goal. But what I teach is you're actually linking your goal to you first of all think of your charitable goal, but then you think of, right, so what desired outcomes do I want from a business perspective around this? What desired outcomes do I want personally from this, as well as what other outcomes would I want for a cause? Because you might not have got a cause at this point. You might just know you want to do some things, but you've not worked out your cause yet.
That makes sense.
So it's actually thinking about things from the 3 different perspectives of you, your business, and your cause, or a cause. From that, you're then, if you've picked a goal, and I'm saying if you've picked a goal, because there are some things you can do where you don't need to actually have a cause that you've chosen, and I'll come on to those shortly. But if you have picked a goal, like if, for instance, you know you want to go off and volunteer, or you know you want to donate, say a website, or you want to raise funds, then you probably need to find a cause. So it's then about choosing a cause if you haven't already got one. And there's quite a lot of things to consider around that, which is why there's a whole chapter on that in my book, quite a lengthy one, around the different things, because there are different things we might want to consider. And again, each of us are different around how we choose a cause. For me, it was I need to go out and I need to experience and I need to see what the cause is about. Because I'm kinesthetic and I need to have that experience. Whereas others, it would be go and do the research and they don't need to get involved. So there are different strategies for choosing the right cause, but it's important to choose the right cause and to choose a cause that is doing good work. And one of the things I guess I do just want to mention here is one of the things that some people talk about is, well, I want to pick a cause where most of the money goes off to the children in Africa or whatever that cause is. And to me, that is not a good measure of a cause, because one of the things I've learnt is, without doubt, it's about how effective is a cause, not how much a cause spends on its operating costs. Because for some causes, and particularly in somewhere like, even when we go to Rwanda, the costs of operations are really high because of the logistics or lack of anything that you have there. So, you know, it's actually looking at causes that are effective. Then from there, it's about coming up with ideas and different business ideas. Are you hearing me okay? I've got workmen in.
I'm hearing you absolutely fine.
Right, that's fine. So from there, you're then saying, right, what ideas do I have? And I do suggest brainstorming different ideas to actually achieve that goal. So if I give an example, and I talk about this in my book, you know, a few years ago, I ran a summit. It was the Give to Profit Summit. It was something that I wanted to do to raise $25,000 for one of the children in Rwanda, or young people in Rwanda. I took that on before I was ready, and it did completely knock my business, without a doubt. So it's actually thinking about ideas, have 2 or 3 different ideas, and really vet them through the filters of, do I have the capacity, the money, the resources to do this, and make sure you have that balance. So you know, that's really important.
So possibly baby steps to begin with, you know, jumping in with something that was 25,000 may just be too much for some people, but maybe doing something, because you could always do this a few times, couldn't you, if you had different causes maybe you wanted to support as well.
Totally. And I've found that I just keep doing it. You know, I just keep going through the same process all the time with different goals. Yeah, so totally. And then, so once you've got 2 or 3 ideas, and you may just have one, and that's great, and you just keep going for it, you know, go through it. But, you know, evaluate the ideas, then look at, well, how can you actually expand your impact? And in my book, I actually talk about expanding and simplifying your impact. So you've probably heard of the win-win. You know, looking for a win-win, or even the triple win model. What I talk about in my book is a 7+ win model, because I'm looking at it from the perspective of, right, okay, how can you win personally? How can your business win? How can the people that you serve, your clients, win? And sometimes the people that they support, how can they benefit? And then you look at things in all those different filters for the cause. So you look at, you know, all the cause and the people that support them and the people they're there to serve. And then you might look at things like your partner, your business partners, your network, and other different pieces too. So you're looking to expand your impact and really expand the possibilities through the collective resources that are available, and then you come back in and simplify it. So that's what that's about. And then the next step is looking at how we measure. So obviously it's important to measure what we do in any aspect of business, really, but particularly if you remember back to one of the things I said earlier, that consumers and employees make decisions on who to buy from and work for based on businesses that show they care. We have to be able to show we care. It's not just about doing it. We need to measure it and tell everybody about it.
Sure.
Not in an egotistical perspective, but just subtly through having a website that, you know, that says this is what we're doing and this is the impact we're making. But obviously, to share that story, you need to be measuring it.
People want to know your successes as well, don't they? So if they've been involved with, you know, helping you to raise £25,000, they want to know, you know, they want to celebrate with you as well, surely.
Of course they do. Of course they do. I mean, we did a fundraiser last year where we built a, you know, about with my business network, we built a house in Malawi. Now that's it was a few £100s. It wasn't thousands, but you know, we raised it doing an online fundraiser, and then you know, sent the money over. I got a picture back. I shared the picture. People loved that because they'd been part of building a house for this poor woman and her disabled son.
Fantastic, fantastic. And obviously you say tell your story. You've got to tell the story, and you just got, you know, it's just keep people updated with what you're doing, and also maybe what the next thing that you're focusing on as well.
Yeah, and it gives you, from a business perspective, it lets people connect with you, as you say, they like to hear, but it also just gives you another thing to talk about with your clients instead of always your business.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so no, yeah, these are the steps that I would go through. It's almost like a circle rather than stopping there. I should have put dots that go up to the Y again.
Yeah,
it's like a continual circle.
Brilliant. So if there's people listening now thinking, you know, where do I start? And I know in the book, I know I have read it, and there are loads. I can't remember how many different ways you can support causes. So just talk us through the most popular ones on this list.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in my book I talk about 25 different ways, but yeah, these are just some of the main ones. And obviously the easy ones, the obvious ones are making financial donations, which lots of people will know about. Donating your time, donating products. So you might have a product that you might want to be purely, that's a fundraising product. Or maybe people are sitting around with old stock, unsold stock. Instead of having it cluttering a room or shelves or storage space, you know, to me, I'd be selling that and raising funds using that. And then we've got the fundraising aspect. So the fundraising aspect, I've got a couple of different things here. One is incorporating fundraising into your marketing and sales campaigns. So for me, for instance, you know, in the world of personal development and business mentoring, there's a lot of people out there doing online webinars. And, you know, certainly over the last 6 years, I've seen a massive change in how few people now attend the webinars in the way they used to, and how people don't like the selling aspect. They want instant access, and so I started doing fundraising events instead, where people would pay to get content. And I mean, you were on a call earlier on this week where where I was doing that. And
I know, and it was hugely valuable. I learned so much from it, and I think when you do pay for something, you commit to it rather than just sign up for something and maybe you listen to it later. But I was there live on the call asking questions and, you know, being part of it, because for me, you know, A, it was important because I really wanted to support the charity, and B, actually I was learning a huge amount at the same time.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Karen, because that's exactly what I found. People will sign up because they want to support the charity and support you. They're more likely to turn up live and participate. And actually, I went out and I did research with my audience, because I'm a real girl I like to go off and do the research before I do things. I went out to them, and they actually said that they would prefer to donate money for a cause and to come and listen to a fundraising masterclass than go on a free sales webinar where they were going to be pitched to.
Yeah.
So people have lost trust in a lot of these sales webinars. Whereas I make it very clear this is a fundraising masterclass, there's no sales pitch. So that's just one thing you can do. I do the same for tasters. You know, I don't do free events. I never do free events now. There's always a cost associated, but quite often it is, you know, a small token cost. It's a fundraising donation that people do, and I tend to get the same in face-to-face. So you can incorporate fundraising, but there's lots of different ways, and again, I've got 52 ways to raise funds for causes through your business in my book as one of the chapters. So there's lots and lots of different ways we can do it. If we look at some of the brands that are doing it, you've got Innocent Foods, not Innocent Foods, Innocent Drinks, who do the, you know, the knitted cat hats.
They were at the top of my mind when we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, you know, you've got Innocent Drinks, you've got loads of companies that do this now. What I would say, and you touched on this earlier, is that there is legislation. Are most of your audience, Karen, who'll be listening to this, are most of them in the UK?
Most of them in the UK, so some abroad, but probably about 80% in the UK.
Okay, so in most countries, most developed countries in the world, there is legislation around what is known as cause marketing. So cause marketing is where you incorporate fundraising into your marketing and sales campaigns. And that's a simple definition, because actually even in America, in all the 52 different states, they've got different legislation and different definitions, just to make things really complicated. So to keep it really simple, if you're going to do any fundraising that is mentioned in your marketing and sales campaigns, make sure you are aware of the legislation that is involved. In the UK, this applies where we support registered charities. There is not currently the same legislation if we're supporting social causes and social enterprises, because it's to do with charitable law. Mm-hmm. That isn't to say that won't change. And there are also ways in which you can make sure it doesn't apply to you. And again, I've talked about how to avoid the legislation in a chapter in the book. Mm-hmm. This one part of this one topic was something that almost stopped the book being published when I realised the complexity of it. But what I would say to anybody who is thinking of doing this, don't let that put you off, because a lot of the bigger charities and causes certainly will have what they call a cause marketing agreement, and they can talk you through it. Mm-hmm. It's sensible legislation. It's all about protecting consumers, and it's things like being transparent. So if I give an example, it is what regulators don't like is us saying things like, I will donate a percentage of profits to charity or a percentage of sales to charity, because it's too vague for consumers. Mm-hmm. They don't know, is that 1 pence? Mm-hmm. Or is that going to be £10? Yeah. So it's certainly in that example, I would be stating an amount. So the fundraiser, for instance, Karen, that I did on Monday that you came to, before I discovered all of this legislation, I used to say, all profits will go to the cause. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I would take out of it would be the banking costs, sure. The transactional costs, if you like, and if I had to pay an administrator to actually set it up. Mm-hmm. But now what I say is at least £10 of every 15 will go to a cause, and also name the cause. Mm-hmm. So it's about being transparent so that consumers can make a decision based on having clear information.
Yeah, because for certain things you don't necessarily know the profit, and how do you measure the profit? Because one of the things some of my clients want to do is a proportion of their book sales go to profit, but when do you measure it? Do you measure it profit per book, or do you think about all the investment you've actually spent to actually create the book? All of that is something to really consider.
It is, and it's good, and this is a good point to bring up, because with books I do donate per book, but I don't mention it anywhere, because I was going to mention it in my book, but when I realised the legislation I took it out. Right. So I say nowhere that I am donating an amount because of the legislation. Mm. And because my book's going global, and I didn't want to hit any, I just thought, I just don't want to hit any of the legislation in all these other countries. I don't want to have to deal with it. But what I do is, and there's a brilliant organisation called Buy One, Give One. So it's buy and then the number one, give and then the number one.com. So they have, I've just got a blog post that's just gone out on them actually, and I mention them in my book, but they have charities that they've thoroughly vetted that have projects where they break down things like, the cost of a meal to a child, the cost of planting a tree, the cost of giving a child access to a book, and many other things. And that you can go in, and every month I just go in and I add up my book sales, and for every book that I sell I then plant so many trees, or next month I'm giving out the books, and then I can record that and show that on my website. So I'm doing it, but I'm not sort of promoting it in advance to avoid that legislation.
But it's part of the story, part of the reason why you do what you do, and obviously it gives good examples of why you're doing it that way as well. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So I didn't realise it was a bit complex.
Oh, I mean, honestly, I didn't, and I had no idea about this until I wrote my book, and then I discovered it and thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to work this out, but not put people off. And there's no need to be put off by it, because there are plenty of ways around it. Of course. And as I said, at the moment, you could actually just say going to a cause, although in some parts of the world, depending where your book's going, that might be in conflict with legislation. In the UK, that wouldn't be currently. But the other side we can do is we can fundraise internally. So what I mean by that, Karen, is say for instance you've got you're having a book launch and you want to do some fundraising at the book launch. Because that's not part of your marketing to get people to the book launch, that's not regulated.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Currently.
Yeah.
Currently in the UK, that isn't regulated. But it's in a similar way in the UK. If we sell raffle tickets in advance of event, we've got to get permission from, it's usually our council, you know, for the raffle tickets.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're at an event, people can just sell raffle tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's similar.
Okay.
So you can fundraise, and you can fundraise within a business without having to go every time and get permission.
That's the great thing about your book, though, isn't it, Alison, that you've outlined all of this so people can make it easy to do it. They don't have to think, oh my God, I don't know where to start. You know, take people through it in your book, step by step, exactly how to do it, and also the pitfalls and the successes, and also probably things that haven't gone so well as well.
Yes, absolutely. And just a couple, I won't mention all of these here because there's, you know, those that go on for hours, and I know we could chat for hours, but there's a couple here other things I want to just mention. One is the sourcing social suppliers, which to me was just like, oh my gosh, how did I miss, you know, that's just such an obvious one. That is, instead of going to a business to buy our business services, actually see if you can find a social enterprise that supplies things like stationery and other things. And then social outsourcing or hiring, that is about looking at how you can employ people. So for instance, I actually proactively wanted to employ people in the Philippines, and that was because they are they've got another flood or something. No, it's they're under martial law, aren't they, just this week? You know, they are a country that seems to have a lot of unrest or natural disaster. So they're as a population and country, they suffer a lot more than a lot of other countries. So I set the intention to find people that I could actually outsource certain parts of my business to. And I have 2 people in my team there. It's not for the reasons that the big corporates might do, which was all about cost cuttings. For me, it's actually all about the impact, and I pay them at least as much money as I would pay somebody if they were in the UK or US. Because to me, it doesn't matter where they are, and it just feels good to me that I am supporting somebody in that community, in that part of the world. So, but yes, as you say, I talk about a lot more of these in the book.
Okay, so what is your vision for Give to Profit going forward?
Good question. Good question. It's one of these things, I wrote it and I didn't know quite what people would think about it, but actually I had somebody who came to me and said, Alison, you have no idea what you've just done. This is big. You could have this in business schools. It's a new business model. And then I had a large corporate come to me and say they wanted to buy copies of this book to give to all their salespeople. Honestly, I mean, you were talking several thousand books. Would it be okay to buy them, to put an order in? I'm like, okay, I suppose so. So without a doubt, the vision I have based on the feedback I'm getting, and bear in mind I only published this a couple of months ago, but I already know that that it's a bit of a movement. I have talked about in the book, and I'm already starting to explore how I can have a Give to Profit pledge for people who want to do their business in this way, where they can, you know, they can read the book, they can get access to, I've got an online course as well, which is just a short 1 hour, which talks through a lot of the things that I've got in the book, and actually talks through a lot of what you're already giving to your audience. So, you know, that once they've done certain things, they could then get that pledge. But actually, I'm also going to have a membership community, which will really just being there so that if people have questions about, right, I'm thinking of doing this, does anybody have any ideas, or who's got experience of doing this, so that people can connect and share ideas, because people are asking me for it. It's been one of these interesting things. I've not gone out and marketed it, but I get emails in, you know, usually one a week or so, saying, when are you getting your community going? So my vision for it is definitely to have a community, a movement of business owners around the world, and my vision is definitely to transform the way that businesses think, that doing good doesn't need to be an afterthought, that doing good through our business, we don't need to keep, you know, our giving separate. We can actually make our businesses a reflection of who we are as individuals and what's important to us, and really have more impact. And for anybody that resonates with that, I just want to be here to support them, either through the membership community and actually working with some people one-to-one. So for instance, you know, going out and doing conferences. I was in Australia last week, and I was amazed to see how this came alive. My role was to do fundraising for that conference. So it was to take similar work that we do in Rwanda to work with Aborigine community and refugees in Australia who have also been traumatised,
Of course.
and so it's working with them. So this conference was you know, around tapping, which is a technique we use over there with them, and the idea was that they wanted to raise some funds so we could actually launch the project in Australia. My vision was I want to have people from that audience sign up to actually raise the money on an ongoing basis through their business so the project becomes self-sustaining from day one. I think the organisers thought that was a bit far-fetched, but in one day we raised over 20,000 Australian dollars.
Wow.
And we got 14 people who want to learn how to do this properly, and some of them are going to support that project ongoing.
Fabulous.
So I know, I was amazed. I was blown away, and we were inundated, absolutely inundated. So it's looking, that's what I want to do more of, is really just go out and help as many people as I can. That's what I see my mission now is in life, to be having the impact through supporting other people and having impact in their business.
And I think you probably answered this one already, but I just wrote this down a moment ago. You know, obviously a lot of people, watching this will be thinking about writing a book and will be thinking about, you know, is it really worth it? What's been the impact of writing and publishing this second book so far, apart from everything you've already said?
Well, I guess in one way I'm very lucky because there isn't another single book on this topic in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So I am getting people who I'm definitely getting people approaching me who I never thought would approach me. It's opening doors like nothing else I've seen in any of the other things that I've done, other than, well, I suppose very similar to doing the charitable work in itself. The actual book is opening doors. Well, just even the, you know, the perspective of that person saying, well, could I actually do a big bulk order, which I've wanted to do with my last book. And actually my last book I have sold more doing bulk orders as well to workplaces. So this definitely is expanding my vision for where I can operate my business. It's taking it bigger and to bigger organisations in a way that fits with the way, because I don't want to be in and out of organisations doing stuff, but I love the idea of having other people that I support who are the ambassadors. So it is shifting maybe the way forward for my business, which I hadn't realised. And
did you find through writing the book, obviously you said you did a lot of research and you found out things you didn't know about before, has that also cemented your knowledge and expertise as well as somebody who teaches this stuff?
Oh, definitely, definitely. The process of writing the book consolidated my ideas, and it's, for me, it's also that little bit of a reference. You know, it's just double checking a couple of things that I can look at the book, but it consolidated the message, the idea, and what I'm about. And also, actually, because this is my first book, wasn't aligned to my business. My first book was aligned to the business I'd had until the point I published it. Yeah. Which I made a very conscious decision. I wanted that book published because it actually supports everything I talk about and give to profit.
Yeah.
But by the time I published it, I'd moved away from delivering the content of it. This is very different. I know this is what you help people with. You know, creating a book that is so aligned to you and your business. Now, you know, I look at, to my right, I've got a mind map on a big whiteboard. In the middle of it, I have a copy of my front cover of my book that is laminated in a mind map, and it is, you know, sell 1 million books. That's it. You know, my vision is to transform the lives of 1 million people. I actually probably would only need to sell 100,000 books to do that. But I'm a big goal person, so I'm just going to sell 1 million copies of the book, and it's going to be easy and effortless and like nothing else I've done before. And I don't know how that's going to manifest, but I'm trusting it because this is so aligned to me and my business.
Fantastic. So how can people contribute towards that 1 million and actually get a copy of your book, Alison? What's the best way of doing it?
Well, they can go to Amazon, of course. So go on to Amazon in the UK and US. Of course, I discovered when I was in Australia, my book isn't available in Australia because Amazon don't sell paperbacks. Kindle is. But actually the book depository, if you're living in any other country, I've discovered is a really good place where they ship pretty much around the world at no cost.
Yeah.
So that would be somewhere else. Book depository, or I mean, you can go into bookshops and you can order it. It's not necessarily stocked, but you can order it there too. So
fantastic. Yeah. How can people connect with you further if they want to join your community, follow you on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, anywhere else for that matter?
Well, if they go to my website is alisoun.com, so that's spelled alisoun.com, and actually on that there, I have a blog, Gift to Profit blog. I've got a couple of different free resources too. They can come onto Facebook, which is Alisoun Business is the bit after, or Gift to Profit. So, or you could just put gifttoprofit.com as well, and that gives you all the links.
Fantastic. So Alisoun, thank you very much for joining me today and for sharing so much information that I know is going to be so valuable to our listeners. If I could ask you to leave one final thought for people to think about, take away, do differently, what would that be? I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, I love it. I love it. It would definitely be, if what I have shared resonates with you, ask yourself what is the easiest way you could have more social impact through your business, and whatever comes up, just connect into that and follow that, take that first step forward, take that first step, and particularly if you're publishing a book, be looking at how you can incorporate the charitable component to the way you market your book, because I've certainly found it's a way of getting a book out to more people, and I'm sure you would too. So yeah, just take that first step and let the journey unfold.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And I know we're doing a fundraiser very soon as well, so our listeners, our watchers will find out more information of that very soon. So thank you so much, Alisoun. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, and thanks to everybody who's listened and watched this.